Good morning. My name is Betsy Smalley, and my pronouns are she, her. I serve on your board of trustees as a co-chair. I'm a tall, older woman with short gray hair, and I'm wearing a black turtleneck sweater and a blue jacket. Our speakers provide visual descriptions to welcome people with visual impairments and those listening online. We are excited to be in community with you today. Please take a minute to silence your cell phones and move to a seat in the middle of your section to leave aisle seats open for those with accessibility needs. Thank you. If you're visiting for the first time, stop by the welcoming table in the gallery to pick up a visitor gift with more information about our community. Look for the Getting to Know You sign in Beach Hall after the service to learn more about our congregation. And everyone is welcome to come chat with me or another board member after the service. There's a lot going on here at First UU. Please see the order of service or this week's Sunday announcement email where you can see details about what's going on here at First UU. Our upcoming mid-year meeting is on February 8th when we will vote to amend First UU's Constitution. So save that date. In addition, be sure and pick up one of your green feed and read bags outside, as this is a collection Sunday. Now, please rise in body or in spirit to sing Over My Head, number 30 in the gray hymnal.
Good morning. My name is Chalice, and my pronouns are she, her. I serve as the church legal counsel, and I'm also filling a vacancy on the Board of Trustees. I'm a 47-year-old white woman with shoulder-length orange hair wearing glasses. I'm here to offer our land acknowledgement today. We acknowledge that the land the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus occupies in central Ohio is the ancestral and contemporary territory of the Shawnee, Potawatomi, Delaware, Miami, Peoria, Seneca, Wyandot, Ojibwe, and Cherokee peoples. We honor the legacy of the Hopewell and Adena cultures, whose monumental earthworks still, thankfully, grace our landscape. We recognize the painful history of genocide and forced removal through military coercion via the 1795 Treaty of Greenville and the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which displaced these sovereign nations from their homeland. Furthermore, we acknowledge a history of displacement and land theft that continued in the following decades. We recognize the Randolph Freed people, a group of 400, possibly more, Black Americans who were emancipated in Virginia and traveled to Ohio in 1846 to settle on 3,200 acres of legally purchased and inherited land in Mercer County. The sixth great-granddaughter of Dosha Randolph, a member of this group, is present with us today. Upon their arrival, the Randolph Freed people were met by an armed white mob that violently denied them their property, forcing them to flee and eventually settle in Miami and Shelby counties. By naming these histories, we refuse to allow the erasure of those who have been forcibly removed from this soil. We honor the resilience of the indigenous nations and the descendants of the Randolph Freed people who continue to thrive and contribute to the fabric of Ohio today, despite their stolen economic futures. We commit ourselves to learning the true history of this land and advocating for a form of restorative justice that promises to endure, especially through times like the current political environment. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Dr. Teresa Cooley. It's my privilege to serve as your lead minister. I'm so glad to be back with you today. I am a white woman in her early 60s with silver hair, wearing a white and black striped sweater, and my pronouns are she, her. Let us enter into the spirit of worship with these words from Michelle Collins. Welcome, all who are restless for a world renewed. We come carried by ancestors who refused the silence of despair and dared to sing a new song. Their courage whispers through us still. Today, we resist by showing up together. We resist by keeping faith with what is not yet. Our gathering is itself an act of sacred dissent, calling us to rise and unite as co-creators of a freer tomorrow. It is now time for our children to meet Gus in the back to prepare to bring in the light. Everybody else, turn to your neighbors and introduce yourselves. It is now time for the children to bring in the lights. All right, I know we're having a good time, but it's time for the children.
He's playing Frankie Beverly. We are one. Frankie Beverly. No one. We are one. We are one. Good morning. I'm Paisha Thomas, your Justice and Equity student minister. I am a short black woman in her 50s, and today I'm wearing all black except for the orange glasses that you usually see me in. We light our chalice with these words from Pat Uribe Lichty. The chalice we light today is a symbol of our faith. It binds us together as one people. A reminder that our strength is in our shared hope for the world, and that our common work is the creation of beloved community among ourselves and in the world.
Thank you, Lincoln, for helping us light the chalice this morning. Good morning. I'm the Reverend Kelly McNeil. I serve as your Minister of Congregational Life, and my pronouns are she, her. I am not Amber Scott, but I am representing her as a fellow white femme millennial with wild, wonderful, wavy hair. Today's story is called Freedom on the Menu, written by Carol Boston Weatherford and paintings by Jerome Lagarigu. Every week, Mama and I went shopping downtown. After, we'd stand sipping Cokes at the Five and Dime because we weren't allowed to sit at the lunch counter. I watched a girl with a purse like mine swivel her stool. "Can I have a banana split?" I begged. "Not here, Connie. I'll fix you one at home." All over town, signs told us where we could and couldn't go. On water fountains, swimming pools, movie theaters, and even bathrooms. Everybody I knew obeyed the signs, except my great Aunt Gertie. Once, she drank from a whites-only fountain and said real loud, "I've never heard of colored water." Then lifted me up to take a sip. "Y'all know better than that," a man scolded. I started to say sorry, but Aunt Gertie huffed. It was hot out, but he walked away without taking a drink. There weren't signs in the 5 and dime, but we still knew. Most people didn't expect change anytime soon. But my daddy thought differently. Dr. King's coming to town, he told us. He's a minister working to make things better so that we can go anywhere we please. Our whole family went to hear Dr. King. I didn't understand all of it, but I liked his booming voice, like he believed in God was on our side. Every few minutes, Mama said, "Amen," and everyone stood and clapped for a long time. Soon after, my brother and sister joined the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. They let me tag along door to door, signing up people to vote. "I've never voted in my life," said a white-haired lady with a cane. "Will I get to vote for president?" "Yes, ma'am," I said. "My brother wants to be president." "Tell him he's got my vote. Times are a-changing," she chuckled, handing me her form. "Yes, ma'am, I'll tell him." One day, Mama and I stopped at the snack bar. I tugged her sleeve. "Look at the lunch counter." There sat 4 of Brother's friends from A&T College. "Do they know they're in the wrong place?" I whispered. "Some rules have to be broken," Mama whispered back. "I'm sorry we can't serve your kind," said the waitress, wringing her hands. The boys didn't budge. "Don't y'all understand? Stop making trouble. They can sit forever for all I care," the manager snapped, storming out of the store. An old white lady came up to the boys. "I'm so proud of you," she said, so everyone could hear. "I wish someone had done this sooner." The waitress kept wiping and re-wiping the counter and refilling the salt and pepper shakers. Suddenly, the manager came back with a policeman. "Let's go, Connie," said Mama. The manager shooed us out and put a close sign in the window. "Why'd your friends do that?" I asked Brother. "If we can spend money there, it's only fair that we should be able to eat at the lunch counter." "I guess so," I said. "Think it'll work?" Sometimes it's important just to try. The next day, the newspaper headline read, "Black students stand up by sitting down." "They sat 4 hours," said Daddy. "I'd be too hungry," I said. They didn't really want food. They wanted to be allowed to get it, same as if they were white, to be treated fairly. By Friday, hundreds more had joined the sit-ins. "I'm joining the sit-ins," Brother said, bursting into the room. "And I'm going to picket downtown tomorrow," said Sister. "I want to go too," I said. "I'm plenty big enough to hold a sign, and I know I can sit." "It's good that you want to help," said Daddy, "but you're still too young." "You can help us make picket signs," said Sister. "That's very important." The next morning, I handed Sister my little flag to carry. "We'll tell you everything when we get home," Brother promised. I saw the protests on TV. Hundreds of people walked up and down in front of stores, restaurants, and movie theaters. I saw Sister carrying a picket sign, and there was Brother at the lunch counter. "I'm so proud of them," said Daddy. "Me too," I said. "I just pray there's no trouble," Mama fretted. "The sit-ins have spread all over the South." Just then the phone rang. "Daddy, it's Sister. She got arrested at the lunch counter. She's in jail." Sister, who always got A's and hardly ever got in trouble. Daddy raced to the police station, but Sister wouldn't let him get her out. He told me the students kept chanting, "Jail, not bail, jail, not bail." "We can't leave Sister," I pleaded. "She's made up her mind, Connie," said Mama, wiping a tear. "She wants to stay with the other students." In a few days, Sister came home. "Promise me you'll stop picketing," I begged. "I can't do that," she said, hugging me tight. Instead of shopping downtown, we had to order from the Sears catalog. "How long before the sit-ins are over?" I asked. "Till folks get what they want." That summer, we finally went downtown. When we passed Woolworths, I heard someone shout, "They're serving them." Daddy stopped so fast the brakes screeched. We ran to the lunch counter. There sat the woman who worked in the kitchen. They were all dressed up and eating egg salad. I stood and watched them eat every bite. "Looks pretty good," I said. Daddy and I shared big grins. The next day, we made a special trip. Brother wore a suit and tie. Sister and I wore hats and white gloves. At the lunch counter, I climbed up on a stool. "We'll have 3 hot dogs, 3 French fries, 2 coffees, 1 Coke, and 1 banana split, please." As I ate, the waitress plopped an extra cherry on a mound of whipped cream. She still looked nervous, but she smiled at me. It was the best banana split I ever had. The end. I invite you to please remain seated with hands over your hearts as we sing "This Little Light of Mine," number 118 in your gray hymnal, to sing our beloved children back to their families and out to class.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
In January, we share our plate offering with the Bottoms Up Diaper Bank. Bottoms Up Diaper Bank was founded in August 2018 by Tim and Joe Walsh as an outgrowth of their love for one another, their faith, and their desire to help meet the needs of families who can't afford enough diapers to keep their children clean, dry, and healthy. Since then, Bottoms Up has delivered more than 560,000 diapers to over 70 food pantries and child care facilities in Central Ohio for distribution to those in need, including First You Use Own Feed and Read Ohio recipients. Bottoms Up continues to grow, and diapers are collected through drives at churches, schools, businesses, or purchased through the generosity of others. And I hope you will join that generosity by giving as much as you can afford to this important cause. Let us now receive this morning's offering. Today's pastoral listener is Sue Farnlarker. Oh no, it's Sharon Hammersley, sorry. She just looks like Sue. If you have something on your mind or heart and would like to have somebody to speak with, she would be very glad to listen to you. We have some joys and sorrows from our community to share with you this morning, and there are quite a number of caring cards for you to sign. After waiting a very long time, one of us is happy to announce that she has achieved citizenship. So we offer congratulations, and we also note with sadness the political reality that makes it impossible for us to name her. We send healing thoughts to Susan Williams, who had a series of strokes on Thursday and Friday. She's at Riverside Hospital and will be going to rehab for some time. Cards are welcome, but no visits at this time, please. And we stand in solidarity with the Unitarian Universalist congregations in the Minneapolis area in the face of the violence and hate that is being perpetrated on their communities. And so we have cards to sign for each of the 12 congregations, 10 congregations that are in that area. So I invite you to offer your support. And we send sympathy to Wolfgang Salazar at the loss of his sister, Audrey Murphy, to cancer on Friday. She lost her husband just a year ago. We hold her 3 children and their spouses in care, as well as Wolfgang's brother, Gustavo. Please join me in the spirit of prayer or meditation with these words from Kate Lohr. There comes a moment when angst and prayers must grow legs, when outrage refuses to remain a feeling held politely in the chest. Democracy does not live on objection alone. It breathes when ordinary people withdraw their consent, not in chaos, but together with intention. This is the old wisdom. Power yields not to noise, but to numbers that will no longer comply. So we lean into one another. We lay down our labor, our silence, our willingness to pretend that harm is governance and violence is order. We resist, not from hatred, but from fidelity. Fidelity to one another, to the future watching us, to the sacred insistence that no system built on coercion deserves our cooperation. We walk out, we sit down, we stand in streets and doorways with open hands and disciplined hearts. This is not rebellion for its own sake. This is repair, demanding to be heard. This is accountability made unavoidable. Let the world see what real Americans are made of. Not cruelty, not domination, not fear dressed up as strength, but solidarity, resolve, nonviolence with backbone, the courage to say no more and mean it without raising a fist. Democracy survives when people remember they are the body it depends on, when they move together, when they refuse to carry forward what violates their conscience. So come, bring your neighbor, bring your tired hope, your unglamorous courage. We will lean into this together, not violently and not passively, but faithfully, until legitimacy is restored and accountability is no longer optional. Now I will ring our temple bell and we'll have a moment of silence together.
The reading today is from Martin Luther King's essay, Letters from a Birmingham Jail. I must make two honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klanner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. Please remain seated to sing Circle Around for Freedom, hymn number 155.
Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
So we're going to keep with the theme of King's letter from a Birmingham jail. Raise your hand if you knew that this document is one of the founding documents required by advanced placement U.S. government in the test. All right, so a few people. With any hope, we'll be able to wrangle back our education system so that we can keep accessing documents like this. So this morning, I invite you into this conversation that I've been having with Dr. King's letter from his cell in that jail. A few years ago, I wrote this song called When. A few of you have heard it. I had been pondering and began to interrogate the old civil rights songs of the 1960s and the early 1970s. Songs like We Shall Overcome, People Get Ready, I'll Take You There, A Change is Gonna Come. In 2020, by 2020, I had been singing We Shall Overcome at the civil rights actions in this community for about 3 years at the request of my friend Dan Clark, and also with my friend here, Bill Cohen, in Songs of the Struggle. And yes, it was that same song from back then. I realized in a moment that I was sick and tired of singing that old protest song. When, though, I blurted out one day in exasperation, that frustration fueled me to write this song called When, and it goes like this. We've been getting ready for the train. They said it was coming, trying to keep thanking the Lord to get on board. We wasn't worried about no baggage, figured a ticket wouldn't do, and here we are, looking around, still trying to see it through. Listen to the sound of the masses, how they're shouting, marching and singing, tear gas stinging my eyes. But what happens when somebody feels they're running out of time? I think that train should have been here by now. And I want to know, when will we overcome? I'm not sure if I believe. What an irony to keep fighting for peace. Fighting for peace. Fighting for peace. Come on, and let us get to step into the place where ain't nobody worried. We've gotten tired of the smiles and the lies coming from their faces. We've been overcoming someday, seems like doggone near forever. If we're going to change anything, it's now or never. And I want to know, when will we overcome? Not sure if I believe. What an irony to keep fighting for peace. Fighting for peace, fighting for peace, fighting for peace. It would be sometime later, after I had started singing in protest, before I would actually read Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail and discover, I like how my technology's cutting up right now, and discover that he too had become impatient with this idea of waiting for justice to just show up in the process of time. He says this, "For years now I have heard the word wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with piercing familiarity. This wait has almost always meant never. We must come to see with one of our distinguished jurists that justice too long delayed is justice denied. We have waited for more than 340 years for our constitutional and God-given rights." And I will interrupt here to say that that was in 1963. In the following year, Johnson would introduce the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which would guarantee equal rights in housing, voting, and education. But then in 2020, the U.S. Supreme Court, led by Chief Justice John Roberts, began to deconstruct the Civil Rights Act of 1964, with many commentators and political scholars believing that deconstruction is complete. King continues, "The nations of Asia and Africa are moving with jet-like speed toward gaining political independence." And I insert again and say that we can see today in movements like the Alliance of the Sahel States that African nations are actively and powerfully decolonizing their countries. But, King says, we still creep at horse and buggy pace toward gaining a cup of coffee at a lunch counter. Perhaps it is easy for those who have never felt the sting of darts of segregation to say, wait. But when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at will and drown your sisters and brothers at whim, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and yet even kill your black brothers and sisters, when you see the vast majority of your 20 million Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she can't go to the public amusement park that has just been advertised on television, and see tears welling up in her eyes when she is told that Funtown is closed to colored children, and see ominous clouds of inferiority beginning to form in her little mental sky, and see her beginning to distort her personality by developing an unconscious bitterness toward white people. When you have to concoct an answer for a 5-year-old son who is asking, "Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean?" When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you, when you are humiliated day in and day out by nagging signs reading white and colored, when your first name becomes nigger, your middle name becomes boy, however old you are, and your last name becomes John, and your wife and your mother are never given the respected title Mrs. When you are harried by day and haunted by night by the fact that you are a Negro, living constantly at tiptoe stance, never quite knowing what to expect next, and are plagued with inner fears and outer resentments, when you are forever fighting and denigrating sense of nobodiness. And I might add, too, when somebody in your family or community is killed for walking with snacks, like Trayvon Martin, by a vigilante racist who is subsequently acquitted, or when a 12-year-old boy in your community, like Tamir Rice, is gunned down by a racist police officer within seconds of arriving to the scene where someone has called to report suspicious behavior. Or when someone in your life, like Keith Porter, a black man, is murdered at the hands of an undercover ICE agent, but it is not even in the news until after Renee Good, a white woman was senselessly later murdered by yet another ICE officer. Or when you and your 4-year-old baby girl are in a car with your partner, a kind and gentle man, and you and your baby girl see him executed within inches of your own bodies, like what happened to Philando Castile. King continues, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over, and men are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair. Concerning timelines, I think that King was gracious in his statement containing the timeline that began some 340 years ago before he wrote this letter from the Birmingham jail, when his crime was a nonviolent resistance to America's insidious racism. The origins of the concept of race for the justification of slavery, however, go back even further. Of the very first Europeans in Africa were the Portuguese, 585 years ago in 1441. This is when the Portuguese had pinpointed Africa as a place where they could get spices and gold and a sea route to Asia. But peep game, that's black for watch their performative allyship. Peep game. Initially, the Portuguese crown and Jesuit missionaries forged peaceful links or allyships with the Kingdom of the Congo, converting its king to Christianity. Almost immediately, however, slave traders followed in the wake of priests and teachers, and West Central Africa became tied to the demands of the Sao Tome sugar planters and the transatlantic slave trade. By 1452, Pope Nicholas V of Italy had designed a way to justify genocide and slavery in Africa while pillaging the continent of her resources. It was called Dum Diversus, and it made this colonial violence legal, giving Portugal the right to colonize lands belonging to non-Christian people and to perpetually enslave them. This document, and the subsequent document called Romanus Pontifex, is what led to the authorization of the African slave trade and colonization. This later morphed into the doctrine of discovery, which included colonizing Black and indigenous people worldwide, which was only recently condemned by the Vatican in 2023. On January 1st, 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and still, some waited. The people in Galveston, for example, Galveston, Texas, would not find out until 2 years later, on June 19th, 1865, that their enslavement had ended. Also in 1865, though, there was a catch. It was called the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It rushed in and was ratified and said to abolish slavery and involuntary servitude, except for for punishment for crime. So then it became a crime to be outside after dark while black, to be unemployed anytime while black, to exist while black. And we know already that in 1963, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. staged a nonviolent protest against racial segregation and was consequently arrested and thrown into that cell in a Birmingham, Alabama jail. And still, according to his supposed allies at the time, he should have waited for a better time. What's the schedule? As King clearly informs them that we know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Frankly, I have yet to engage in a direct action campaign that was well-timed in the view of those who have not suffered unduly from the disease of segregation. I often ask the question, when has there ever been a time in history when Pharaoh has simply voluntarily just let my people go? Looking at overlapping timelines, I was honored to see that my own ancestors' struggle for justice was in today's land acknowledgement by my friend Kara Sight. In 1833, John Randolph of Roanoke passed away after having been the enslaver of my ancestors, whom he had inherited as property from his father. Randolph felt some sort of guilt, kind of like, I hate that I have to own you for my wealth. So it was that in his will that Randolph made provisions to free or manumit some 400 enslaved people, which was everyone who was held captive in his estate. In addition, they were to be resettled on their own property, and then they waited. They waited 13 years, in fact, because you see, freedom is never that easy, is it? The half-siblings of John Randolph of Roanoke appealed his will, attempting to have him declared mad. He must be mad, right, for letting my people go and ending his family's access to the wealth that was gained by their enslavement. That process of appeals would not finally be resolved until May 4th, 1846. So when I say May the 4th be with you, I'm talking about ancestral things. And then they walked by wagon train from Roanoke Plantation, which is in Charlotte County, Virginia. Not Roanoke, Virginia, Charlotte County, all the way to Point Pleasant, where they boarded a ferry boat on the Ohio River. After making it to Cincinnati, they walked again to the Miami-Erie Canal and headed to what they expected to be their own farmland. For more than 200 years, they had been trafficked victims of the American chattel slavery system, building America's agricultural farming enterprise under battery and force. They were finally about to have the liberty to farm for themselves and for their families. But alas, they were met by yet one more American racism. The Ohio that we often romanticize as a free state was at that time solidifying Ohio black codes. Have you heard of those? Which had heavy resistance and a high cost for black settlement in the state. An angry white mob in New Bremen, Ohio, was already armed and had already politicized their violence against the freed people, evoking those same Ohio black laws to add pressure to any politician who would try to force them to uphold Randolph's will to free and resettle my people. By 1907, there were 170 of my ancestors who filed a lawsuit against the executor of the Randolph estate who had purchased the land, but it never made it into their hands. That ultimately led to a Supreme Court decision in 1917 denying justice to my people, citing that the 21-year statute of limitations, or waiting, had expired. Never mind that they had 13-year delay of waiting while they were still held captive by the Court of Appeals in that process. In the 1980s, as I was growing up, my grandmother Charlotte Olden and her friend Mrs. Helen Gilmore and a few other descendants of what are known now as John Randolph's freed people were working diligently to continue to spread awareness of our ancestors' struggle for justice. Mrs. Gilmore had maintained artifacts and the property where the historic cemetery is located. She conducted an Alex Haley level research in a time where there was no internet, very few computers at all. On September 23rd, 1991, which was my 17th birthday, my grandmother, 69 at the time, decided to walk 1.5 miles from her apartment to the Miami County Courthouse to deliver a letter which would be sent to the Ohio State House. In it, she demanded justice for this same stolen land. Many Piqua Black people just wish that Grandma Charlotte and Mrs. Gilmore would just let bygones be bygones. But they had a calling to justice to stand up for their rights. And here we are still today. I have taken up this cause as my own 180 years after my people were freed from Roanoke Plantation. Because according to King, actually, time itself is neutral. Human progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. It comes through embodying change and refusing to join what King calls the forces of social stagnation. And when is a good time for that if not now? These final words from King's letter powerfully remind that for more than 2 centuries, our forebears labored in this country without wages. They made cotton king. They built the homes of their masters while suffering gross injustice and shameful humiliation. And yet, out of a bottomless vitality, they continued to thrive and develop. If the inexpressible cruelties of slavery could not stop us, if lynching could not stop us, if the prison industrial complex could not stop us, if police brutality and police killing, if ICE, if redlining, if gentrification could not stop us, the opposition we now face will surely fail. We will win our freedom, says King, because the sacred heritage of our nation and the eternal will of God are embodied in our echoing demands. And finally, a good friend reminded me just yesterday that rights that were created to protect my people have come to be a shield that has protected us all for more than 60 years. And as that shield splinters, I think of the poem by Martin Niemöller, and I paraphrase. First they came for all these people, but I did not speak up because I was not them. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. The culture may not care if there is no one left standing for my people in such a time as this, but will it care if there is no one left standing for you? I invite you today to ponder these questions. For what cause is it that you plan to be unstoppable? And will there ever be a better time than now? And so it is. Thank you. As you're standing, we'll sing hymn number 1074, Turn the World Around. Thank you.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the fire, living in the water. We back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Oh, so is life. So is life. Whoa, so is life. So is life. You know who I am. Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? What is life? Whoa, so is life. So is life. Make the river wash the mountain. Make the sunlight turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain, spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the spirit, living in the spirit, only can the spirit turn the world around. Whoa, so is life, so is life. Whoa, so is life. So is life. Whoa, so is life. So is life. Whoa, so is life. So is life.
Please take the hand of someone near you as we say the benediction. Our benediction comes from Michelle Collins. Leave this place with hope rekindled, not as wishful thinking, but as stubborn practice. In a world drenched with despair, choose joy, choose action, choose to believe another way is possible, and live as if it is already breaking through. And now let us extinguish the chalice together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of vision. As we go forth, let us heal and transform ourselves and our world through reason and love.
Be a law against anyone who takes offense at a day in your celebration, 'cause we all know in our minds that there ought to be a time that we can set aside to show just how much we love you. And I'm sure you would agree, what could fit more perfectly than to have a world party on the day you came to be.